Entryway, if you guys are new here, hi and welcome. Today we're talking about my top indoor houseplants. These are houseplants that honestly you shouldn't be able to kill. These are really low maintenance, they're really beautiful, and this is a highly requested video from my subscribers. So I wanted to break down all of my top indoor houseplants that I've been loving, that have been thriving. They haven't died on me, which is great news. And a lot of these plants I really think you guys are gonna like. So probably about a year and a half ago, I really got into growing houseplants. And before I was all about having the fake indoor houseplants, which is nothing wrong with that. Those are always really great because there's no maintenance to them. They always look beautiful and alive. But there is something about real indoor houseplants that just takes your home decor to a whole nother level. And I want to show you guys some of my favorite houseplants. I want to start with this potted devil's ivy that I've been really loving. This was the first houseplant that really got me into all of my current ones. And so when I would go to garden centers, I think that's what really got me into having real indoor houseplants. And when I went to the garden centers, they had these beautiful potted centerpieces and I loved them. I thought they were beautiful, and there's something about real indoor houseplants that just brings new life into your home. So I want to show you guys my first potted plant that really got me into houseplants. So when I first got started, I started with the most easiest plant ever, and it's called devil's ivy. And ivy is really great, especially if you want to get into having real houseplants. Devil's ivy is a really great plant to start with, and so I'm going to show you guys this potted. It is quite heavy, so I'm not going to be holding it the whole time, but I do want to show you guys what it looks like. So in here I have a couple different ivies that have been working really well together, and so this is the devil's ivy that you guys can see right here, and it grows so beautifully. And then I have two other ivies that are also planted in this pot. So this pot I got from Home Goods, and ivy's just a really popular houseplant that's well known for its long, like trailing stems, and they can grow up to 8 feet, which is crazy. So I like to trim my ivy off. You can also trim them at the little nodes, and you can actually regrow them and replant them as well once they have roots. So you can cut the stems back a couple times a year to keep the plant just really bushy and full, but you want to make sure that you are cutting right after a leaf node. So that's the place where the leaf is like attached to the stem. I like to trim mine there, and then they just regrow really nicely, and they're really beautiful and green and lush, and it's just a really nice and easy houseplant to have. And they can become yellow or white depending on the variation that you have. Mine actually haven't really turned too much yellow. I do have this one leaf right here that has a little bit of yellow on it, as you guys can see, but they have just these really pretty heart-shaped leaves, and I love the way it trails down the pot. So I love to have this pot styled on my coffee table. If you guys saw my coffee table styling video, you would have seen me use this as a decor piece, and you can put them in your entryway, in a bookshelf or a cabinet. They're just super universal, and I love the way they look, especially when they are pre-potted with other plants. They're just so beautiful. So the last little tip for the devil's ivy is that it also cleans your air. There's so many wonderful benefits to real houseplants, and the devil's ivy is one of the plants that will actually clean your air as well. So just a fun little tip. I mean, what's not to love? You have a beautiful lush green plant, it cleans your air, very easy to grow. It also grows really well in low light as well. So this works really great when I have it in my bookcases or my built-ins, and it's just a really nice plant to own. The next plant I want to show you guys is probably one of the most asked about plants that I have, and this is called the red stem tears. Now, when I was at the garden center, the lady that worked there called it the red stem baby tears, and so then I just always remembered it as baby tears. But this is actually called red stem tears, and this plant is so fun. It's also very dramatic, and I think that's why I really like it. This plant I love to have styled on my built-ins, and I love the way that it actually just drapes down over my other shelves, and it's just pretty. And if you guys look really closely, this is a very easy to grow houseplant. It has really colorful foliage. It also has these leaves that are dark green with a little brownish hint to them, and then it just has these nice deep red stems. So I love this plant. It's one of those plants where it's just cool and unique. You don't always see it, and it just really stood out to me when I was at the garden center. This one is ready for a water. I gotta water these. But these ones, I like to keep my house plants in pottery. So these pottery pieces I like to purchase from my garden center. You guys can also order them online. But this is the rustic terracotta cylinder. This was $16.50, and I love the color of this with the plant. It's just very dramatic. I love the moss green. But I like to keep all of my house plants in the original containers. And this plant, I still have the prices, look at that. This plant was $16, and this is a 6-inch round, in a 6-inch round cylinder. So I like to keep them in the planters that they come in because they're really easy to water, and I like to take all of these out. I'll put them all in my sink. I'll fill them all up with water. So I do water this about once a week. I wait till the soil is completely dry, and then I give them a really good rinse. I like to make sure that they can drain really well, so that's why I don't like to repot these. You can repot them, but for right now I like to just keep them in the original cylinder that they come in, and then I just put them in my pottery like that. So they're very easy to water. I don't have to worry about them not getting enough drainage, and these have been thriving really well. So this is the red stem tears. Okay, the next plant I want to show you guys is the Nicodemus goldfish plant. This one I saw, and I just love the dark green lush leaves. This is what it looks like up close. Now this is a flowering plant, and the goldfish plant has these orange red flowers that like to bloom, and this is a very exotic trailing plant. These also work really great in hanging baskets. This one I also keep in its pot as well, and then I like to take it out. I'll give it a good soak. I do the same thing for all of my plants, but I keep it in. Let me see if I can take this out. I'm gonna show you guys, but I do like to keep it in its original pot. It's a really good size. This has grown a ton since I purchased it. All of my pottery does have a hole in the bottom of it, but I love the dark, rich, waxy leaves that this plant gives off. Now this plant grows really well in low light as well. If you have it in more indirect sunlight, this plant will start to bloom its orange flowers. So mine actually hasn't started to bloom yet, probably because I keep it in a dark area, but you guys will see the leaves start to turn a little brown before they start to grow new leaves. So very fun. You can style this so many different ways. I've styled this on the coffee table. I've had this in my kitchen. I now currently have it in my bookshelf. I love the way it looks. It's very eye-catching. And for all of my houseplants, I like to get a variety because it just adds a lot of character to your decor. So the next plant I want to show you guys is my Boston fern. I feel like Boston ferns are a very old-fashioned plant, but they bring a lot of elegance to a space. Boston ferns can be styled so many different ways. They work with so many different styles of homes, and I just love the look of them. This Boston fern is amazing. It's lush, it's green, it's full, it's big, and ferns are a really great houseplant as well. They have a lot of great benefits, especially when it comes to cleaning your air. And Boston ferns really need a few things to keep them alive. They love humidity. So I do have a humidifier that I will show you guys that I got from Amazon just recently for my main floor living, and I probably run my humidifier two to three times a week. And I noticed before I got the humidifier, my fern was it was struggling, and I wasn't sure why because it had plenty of water. You want to make sure that you don't overwater it. You want to make sure that it also has really good drainage. But my Boston fern you guys have probably seen in a lot of my background of my videos. So Boston ferns are a really easy plant to keep alive. You just want to make sure that you get the watering correctly, and you also want to make sure that you have a humidifier as well. And the last tree that I have is I have a tall fiddle tree in my entryway. You guys would have seen this if you saw my entryway reveal. I just recently picked up a fiddle tree. I am new to owning a fiddle tree. I've never owned one before, and I've really enjoyed it. I think I'm still trying to get the hang of making sure I'm keeping it alive. So it's growing really well so far. I'm making sure that I'm not overwatering it. I love the height of a fiddle tree. Fiddle trees need indirect sunlight, so it's really thriving in my entryway in the corner, and it's going really well. So fiddle trees also love humidity. I will keep you guys updated on this fiddle tree. I'm hoping I can keep it alive. This is my first time having an indoor house tree, so I'm not going to share too many details about it because I'm not an expert when it comes to fiddle trees, but I'm definitely going to fill you guys in on my other house plants that I've had for quite a while, and they are doing really well. So I will keep you posted on the fiddle tree, but I do love it, and they look good. It was so many different home styles, and I love the pop of green that it just adds to my entryway. So I've showed you guys my houseplants. Now I want to show you guys my indoor herbs that I absolutely have been loving. The first one I want to show you is this lemon thyme, and this plant I recently just picked up at my local garden center. In one of my vlogs I showed you guys. Now the thyme I think is just such a beautiful plant. I love how bright and green the leaves are. I love the contrast that I have it in this terracotta pot. This was really affordable. I believe it was about $6.50 for my thyme herb. You can also buy herbs at your local grocery store. Sometimes my basil I've bought from my grocery store, and they thrive indoors as well, so those are really good. This is what the thyme looks like up and close. But these are just a really lovely addition to a herb garden or a rock garden. They also thrive really well as container plants to form ground cover or among pavers or along a path or a patio. So the lemon thyme will start to grow some flowers, and those are actually a bee attractor. So if you have this out in your garden, you can definitely expect to see some bees, but it's a beautiful indoor plant. It grows really well. I keep it in my windowsill, and it just thrives, and it's warm. It also gets the humidity from my humidifier, and it's just growing really, really well. I do want to show you guys two lavender plants I picked up for spring. I have the lavender, this is the Goodwin Creek, and this is the French lavender. Both smell amazing. The French lavender has a way stronger lavender aroma that smells very similar to lavender products or like lavender oils. I love how fun the foliage is on the Goodwin Creek. Both of these lavenders have been growing really well, and then this is the French lavender. Very fun. I keep one in my windowsill and one in my glass cabinet in my dining room, and they just have such a fresh aroma to them. So these are really easy. You can also transplant these outside once it's warmer. These will take off, they'll get huge. They'll add a really great coverage for your garden. Oh, and they just smell amazing. So these were also a newer purchase for me. I haven't had lavender as an indoor plant, but they're very easy to take care of. For the lavender plants, I do like to fill my pot because these pots do not have a hole at the bottom. I like to fill the pot with about 1 inch of water, and then I put my lavender in the pot, and then the lavender will soak up the water from the bottom, and that works really well. You do want to make sure that if you do that, you aren't overwatering them and you aren't draining the water if there's any left over. Typically there's not, and these plants just soak them up. But they've been growing really well. Very cute, very affordable. These are perfect little decor pieces that you guys can put on shelves or in kitchen counters, wherever you want. Even in a bathroom would be amazing. And they just smell so beautiful. I want to show you guys my last plant, and this is basil. Basil is such a stress-free plant to grow indoors. I love plants. I love growing herbs because you can also cook with them, and they also look amazing and green and lush in your kitchen. But this is the basil. It's absolutely a stress-free plant to grow. So even if you are not known to have a green thumb, basil is probably one of the easiest herbs I would start with. And basil can be grown in a pot, therefore it can produce food even in the most space restricted home. So if you are wanting to do an indoor garden, make sure you guys try out basil. So there are different types of basil. This is an Italian basil, great for cooking. It smells amazing. The aroma is very strong. So I love to have this in my windowsill. I also do the same. I fill my bottom of my pot with water, and then I put my basil plant in it, and it just soaks up all the water. Super easy to grow. So if you guys don't have a green thumb, but you would at least like to try out one plant, I would suggest starting with a herb, which I would start with basil, and if you want to start with a plant, I would start with devil's ivy. Very easy to grow. If I could make a recommendation, I would just kind of get the hang of keeping one plant alive at a time, and then you start to realize, okay, it's not as hard, and then you just kind of get in the groove of keeping all of your plants alive, and it's amazing. This is the humidifier that I ordered from Amazon. I believe it does come with an app. I don't use the app. I just fill it up and turn it on, but you just take the lid off like this. You put the water in this big section, put the lid back on, and you could do high, medium, or low humidity, but it's great. But I've noticed a huge difference with my plants and having a humidifier. Our air is super dry here in Utah, and so it was kind of like one of the little missing key components to keeping my plants looking really healthy and alive, and I really needed a humidifier. So if you guys want to see how I incorporate these plants in my home, don't forget to check out my spring decorate with me video down below. You guys will see me incorporate each one of these plants, and you'll see how I style them.